This was a story of young handsome stud. His name was Asher, and he studied in a university of Southern California. He was a playboy and hook up with any girl he likes, also make them fall in love with him, and have sex with them in every sexual position with his girlfriends as he had ever imagined. One day he was at his university prom party looking for a new taste, a new girl from different origin. As he was searching for his next target, his eyes fell on his dream target. A young Pakistani, cheerfully beautiful blonde girl. Her name is Sana. She was a first-year medical student who had just came from her country for the pursuit of study. As he looks at her, he got stunned by her stunning beauty. She has such a wonderful sexy figure. What every 10 out of 10 women had ever had. Like she had big butts and curved spines. Her eyes are too big like Barbie. Her eyes are windows to the soul. When we talk about her breast size is nearly a C cup, popping a cleavage out from her deep V-shape hot red dress. Her sensational hourglass figure. Her hourglass figure memories into his mind. As he was also a handsome young beautiful man, he approaches her confidently and start flirting with her. At first she ignored him as she was a Muslim, and in Pakistani culture it's prohibited to date a girl. After his intense effort, she fell into his trap and became friend with her. After some day of deep conversation with her, he made her his girlfriend. They both started to date with each other in University Park. Slowly she fell into his trap. All her friends are very beautiful, young and beautiful. They all fell on Asher. All of those girls are like 7 to 8 in front of her. They all comes from same country as foreigner student for higher education. Same like Sana, they all are very sexy and wanted to date him. But the Asher gives importance to only Sana. Sana became so obsessed with him by his drama of loyalty in front of her. She started to ignore her religious belief, started to date Asher in many weekends parties, and touches him and kissing him. As when the Asher came to know that she would not leave him anyway, he started to flirt with many different girls in front of her, especially with her friends, making her feeling jealous. Even kisses to many girls in front of her. She got so much heartbroken. Actually, Asher was doing this to make her submissive and trying to make her his slave. As she agreed to become her slave, he started to have sex with her whenever he want, with multiple sex positions, and even blindfolded her and kisses her in front of anyone in a party. Even took her for sex with her other slutty girlfriends. Sana became the member of her sex club and had done sex with his girlfriends and her female friends too. But from inside she is still feeling jealously. She don't wanted to share his boyfriend with others. So she proposed him one day. But Asher was a terrible man. Have a very toxic, manipulative personality. He said he would be married to her. But she has to do something for him first. At first she sex with her multiple times. Sometime beat her badly with his belt. There's scares of belt spread all over her body. Kisses each and every part of her body. Give her a blowjobs multiple times in a day, also sometimes even in a class. But his frustration don't come to an end. He even convinced her to have sex with her multiple male friends in an orgy. She cried in front of her, but he didn't listen. Even make a video of her naked body, by taking signs from her, so that she could not be able to make complaint to police. But it was just the start of her misery. Her video got viral in her university. She gets so much depressed, wanted to leave him, and run away from him. But he also made her drug addicted. So she has to come over to him each time his new male friend have sex with her. He was selling her body for money, and don't even give her a single penny. From girlfriend to slut, her path was very painful. Even her professors didn't listen to her. Uses her as a sex doll. She also started to give blowjobs to many students in college and started to make money for herself. And even started to have sex with her professors for A+ grades. One day, by keeping a stone on her heart, she again asked him to marry her. But that cruel Asher threw cigar smoke on her face and slammed a door on her face by saying, "You're not my type." After that day, she got ghosted for some days and disappeared from Asher's eyes. Asher, an arrogant stud, doesn't seen her for many days. One day, the rhythmic thrumming of the bass vibrated through Asher's chest. His eyes scanned the Columbia party, not for Sanaa, his ex, but for a new conquest. A vision in blonde hair and a crimson dress caught his eye. But as he swaggered towards her, a flicker of movement in the corner drew his gaze. Sanaa, her once radiant eyes now shadowed, stood alone, clutching a worn leather-bound book. A jolt of unexpected longing pierced Asher. He couldn't explain it, but a strange sense of foreboding settled in his gut. The book in Sanaa's hand, its foreign script glowing faintly under the black light, sent a shiver down his spine. Was it just the heartbreak? Or was something more sinister brewing in his scorned ex-girlfriend's eyes? Before he could find out, Sanaa vanished into the throng, leaving Asher with a chilling premonition. His Playboy charade might just come back to haunt him, in a way he never imagined. He was unable to forget her appearance on that day. A feeling of guilt surrounded him, that he should not have done this to her to this extent. As he slept, he dreamed of that day. In his dream, he saw the air crackled with a tension as thick as New York summer humidity as Asher approached Sanaa. Her smile, once the sun breaking through clouds, was now a cold, distant moon. He leaned in, practiced charm dripping from his voice. "Hey there, Sanaa, you all right?" Sanaa, the girl who once patched up his emotional shrapnel with unwavering devotion, offered a reply as brittle as broken glass. The weight of his betrayal hung heavy, a storm brewing in her eyes that Asher, oblivious fool, mistook for exhaustion and his endless taboo fantasies. Suddenly he woke up in tense mood and took his sleep tablet and tried to sleep again. Later that week, Asher started noticing strange occurrences. Shadows seemed to writhe on the periphery of his vision. Whispers danced on the edge of his hearing, and an inexplicable coldness clung to him even in the sweltering New York heat. These occurrences intensified after he began dating Irina, a stunning blonde from Russia. Their dates were plagued by unseen forces. Lights flickered ominously, glasses shattered inexplicably, and the air grew thick with an oppressive silence. Irina, once carefree, became withdrawn, her porcelain skin marred by dark circles. One night, at his apartment, Asher awoke with a jolt. A blood-curdling shriek pierced the darkness. He scrambled out of bed, heart hammering against his ribs, to find Irina huddled in the corner, her eyes wide with terror. A foul stench filled the air, and on the wall, scrawled in a language he didn't recognize, were symbols that seemed to writhe and twist like living things. Panic clawed at Asher's throat. He raced to Sanaa's apartment, the horrifying truth dawning on him. Sanaa, heartbroken and humiliated, had sought revenge. But it wasn't your typical scorned lover's revenge. Sanaa, remembering the tales of black magic whispered by her Pakistani aunt, had unleashed a darkness far more potent. As Asher stood before Sanaa, his bravado shattered, he saw not the doe-eyed girl he once manipulated, but a woman cloaked in an aura of cold fury. A single word escaped her lips, a word in Urdu that sent shivers down his spine: Intikam. In that moment, Asher knew his Playboy charade was over. The true horror had just begun. He ran away from Sanaa's apartment. He called 911 and told the police that his old ex-girlfriend had gone mad and doing crazy stuff. Also told them that she had also attempted to make him scared to death. The police arrived at Sanaa's apartment, but found no evidence of any activity Asher had told to police. They investigated the Sanaa, but found nothing strange. She manipulated the police and playing in innocence in front of them. The police blamed Asher for the wrong call and don't even believe a single words that Asher had told to them later on. One day he was at her Russian girlfriend's house and doing sex with her. Both were enjoying very much. Suddenly they heard a paranormal noise. They felt that someone might watching them. Asher picked up a baseball bat and began searching her with her Russian girlfriend, but found nothing, gone to bed, and started partying with her whole naked girlfriend Irina again. He again noticed something again while giving a blowjob, but Irina diverted his concentration to her. For instance, he witnessed Irina's face turning into Sanaa's face during a blowjob again and again. He screamed and gets really angry and yells at Irina and throw her away. It's starting to scare Irina too. He even tried to kill his beloved girlfriend Irina, to whom he truly loved. Then suddenly he realized that what is he doing? And then stopped wiping away his girlfriend's tears and hugged her and kisses her. They both then stopped pleasuring and went to bed together. After some time at midnight, a strange thing happened to them. As they awoke at midnight, both of them experienced something that they had never seen before. It all started with the noxious smell that assaulted Asher's senses, a sickly sweet yet utterly putrid odor enveloping him like a ghostly veil. Panic gripped his throat as he quickly rose from bed, his heart pounding wildly against his chest. Across from him, his half-naked Russian girlfriend, Irina, lay frozen in fear, her screams piercing the silence of their apartment. However, the most chilling sight was not Irina's terrified form but the wall itself, adorned with strange symbols squirming and pulsating with an eerie light. It was a horrifying sight for Asher. In moments, Asher's world turned into a nightmare. What had begun as a night of passion had twisted into a scenario from his deepest fears. At the core of it all was his ex-girlfriend, Sanaa, the kind Pakistani girl he had mistreated and abandoned for another. Now, a haunting question lingered in the foul air. Was this payback, or something more sinister? This was no ordinary act of a scorned lover seeking revenge. This was a dive into the murky depths of the occult, orchestrated by a Pakistani woman driven by heartbreak and armed with forbidden knowledge. Asher, the arrogant womanizer, was on the brink of unwittingly stepping into a real-life encounter with dark magic. After a few days had passed, he found himself at a party once more. The thumping bass reverberated through Asher's chest, starkly contrasting the emptiness gnawing at him. Surveying the crowd at Columbia, he sought a distraction. Anyone but Sanaa. Just a week earlier, her adoring gaze had inflated his ego. Now, the weight of his heartless departure burdened him greatly. A shiver ran down his spine as his gaze met Sanaa's. Instead of drowning her sorrows in a drink, as he had expected, she sat huddled in a corner, clutching an ancient book emitting an otherworldly glow. Fear gripped Asher. Recalling Sanaa's Pakistani heritage, thoughts of magic swirled in his mind from their past encounters. Could this be a malevolent ritual, a curse aimed at his very existence? The notion ignited a chilling fear that persisted long after Sanaa had vanished into the crowd, the mysterious book clasped tightly to her chest. As days blended into weeks, Asher's life spiraled into a living nightmare. His once vibrant Russian girlfriend, Irina, grew distant. During their outings, the atmosphere turned oppressive, glasses shattered inexplicably, and eerie whispers sent shivers down their spines. Yet, it was Asher who bore the brunt of the curse. By night, grotesque shadows danced on his walls, his sleep haunted by vivid dreams of Sanaa chanting in an unknown tongue. One morning, he awoke to find a ring of salt encircling his bed, a single raven feather ominously placed at its center, a clear warning from a realm beyond. Fueled by desperation, Asher embarked on a quest for answers. Delving into the forbidden corners of the internet, he stumbled upon accounts of Pakistani black magic, complex rituals fueled by anguish and retribution. The symptoms mirrored his torment with eerie precision. Sanaa was not broken. She was a vengeful spirit wielding powers beyond his grasp. Racing against a malevolent clock, the line between reality and nightmare blurred for Asher. Seeking out a knowledgeable proprietor of an occult bookstore burdened with the weight of ages in her eyes, he received a dire revelation. A potent curse, fueled by Sanaa's wrath, was slowly draining his life force. Redemption beckoned, a perilous ritual necessitating ingredients steeped in darkness. But could Asher confront the repercussions of his actions? Or would Sanaa's vengeance ultimately claim his soul? Zara's words weighed heavily on Asher like a funeral shroud. A curse, driven by Sanaa's heartbreak, was gradually sapping his vitality. A glimmer of hope, a risky ritual, offered a chance at salvation, yet its cost remained unknown. Desperation clawed at Asher. He envisioned Sanaa, her once bright eyes now brimming with icy rage, reciting incantations from that ancient tome. This image kindled a newfound resolve within him. He refused to succumb to this darkness. Zara, her voice weathered by time, outlined the chilling specifics of the countercurse. Nightshade blooming under the full moon, the first shed feather of a raven, and most chillingly, an object infused with Sanaa's anger. The search for Nightshade led Asher into the shadowy underbelly of the city. After locating it in a neglected greenhouse, its purple blooms hummed with an unseen energy that made his skin crawl. Securing the raven's feather proved fortuitous. One morning, he stumbled upon it on his windowsill, a stark contrast against the grimy white surface. However, obtaining the final ingredient, a vessel for Sanaa's wrath, proved exceedingly challenging. He hesitated to enter her abode. A malevolent aura enveloped the place, and the eerie whispers had transformed into guttural growls. Sorting through his belongings, burdened by the weight of his betrayal, his eyes landed on a worn scarf left behind by Sanaa during happier times. Once brimming with memories of her warmth, it now embodied a tangible manifestation of her animosity. On the night of the full moon, casting a silver glow over the city, Asher found himself back in Zara's cramped bookstore. The air was heavy with the scent of smoldering incense and ancient texts. Zara, her face etched with concern, chanted in a language that scraped at the edges of his sanity. The ritual, a fierce and savage ballet of existence and demise, unfolded before their eyes. Asher writhed in agony on the icy ground, echoing Sanaa's cries reverberating from a realm beyond reach. The very symbols that once adorned his walls now pulsed with newfound intensity upon a piece of parchment. Just as darkness threatened to prevail, a blinding radiance erupted from the seething cauldron held by Zara. The cries subsided, giving way to an eerie silence. Zara, spent and exhausted, collapsed, As Asher cautiously surveyed his surroundings, the symbols had vanished. Relief briefly flooded through him. In his apartment, Irina lay motionless, her vacant gaze reflecting the horrors she had witnessed. The raven feather, once a beacon of hope, now lay discarded on the floor, its luster dimmed. Gazing out at the dawning sun, a lone raven circled his abode, its obsidian gaze seemingly holding a chilling awareness. Though the curse may have been shattered, the true toll lingered. He remained a shattered husk, haunted by echoes of Sanaa's fury and a disquieting sense that malevolence still loomed, biding its time. Days melted into weeks, transforming Asher's existence into a barren wasteland. He withdrew from Columbia, the once lively campus now a constant reminder of his past. Attempts to reach out to Sanaa for reconciliation went unanswered. One fateful night, a frantic call shattered the oppressive silence. It was Irina's roommate, Oksana. Irina had vanished. Panic gripped Asher. Was this Sanaa's vengeance, a final act of cruelty? Driven by guilt and a flicker of hope, he raced to Irina's residence, the air thick with the same putrid scent that clung to him after the ritual. The apartment lay in disarray, a scene of chaos with furniture overturned and belongings strewn about. Signs of a struggle were evident. In the bedroom, a lone clue awaited, a torn page from Sanaa's tome, its foreign script aglow with an unnatural radiance. This was more than just Sanaa's retaliation. It hinted at something darker, more sinister. Desperation fueled Asher as he returned to Zara's bookstore, her frail form appearing aged by days. He recounted the situation, the missing page, and the unsettling notion that evil remained uncontained. Zara listened intently, her furrowed brow a map of worry. "The curse," she croaked, her voice barely audible, "may have been broken, but it might have opened a gateway, a portal to something ancient, something far more malevolent." A shiver ran down Asher's spine. The battle was no longer just for Irina. It was for his very essence. Zara's words lingered heavily in the air, laden with dread. "A gateway?" she rasped, her voice trembling with age and fear. "The curse may have been lifted, but it tore a veil between worlds. Now, something ancient, something wicked stalks among us." Asher felt dread grip his heart. Fear encroached upon his sanity. This was no longer solely about Irina. It was a battle for his soul, hanging in the balance. Zara continued, her voice hoarse as she elucidated the looming threat. The jinn, a malevolent spirit from Islamic lore, likely drawn by the potent emotional energies unleashed by the broken curse. Masters of deception. These beings thrived on fear and despair, capable of possession, insanity, and unspeakable horrors. The missing page from Sanaa's book, Zara explained, might hold the key to banishing the jinn back to its infernal realm. However, the ritual would be far more intricate, far more perilous this time. It demanded not only holy water and sacred offerings, but also a blood sacrifice, a life force untouched by darkness. Sarah, Asher's childhood companion, volunteered without hesitation. Her unwavering faith seemed a beacon amidst encroaching darkness. Yet as Sarah pricked her finger for the ritual, a guttural growl reverberated through the bookstore. The air thickened, shadows swirling like malevolent spirits. From the torn page, a monstrous entity materialized. A towering specter of smoke and shadow, its eyes aflame with unholy crimson. Razor-sharp claws extended from its inky form, a guttural voice booming. "You dare break the pact? Summon me and then seek to banish me?" Zara, her visage drained of color, cried out, "Not for you, creature! This place is sacred." The jinn bellowed with laughter, a sound that shook the very foundation of the building. "Fools! You opened the door. Now I claim my due." Chaos erupted during the ritual. Holy water sizzled and vanished as the jinn drew near. Sarah's screams were abruptly silenced as a tendril of shadow ensnared her arm, lifting her into the air. Asher lunged forward, a primal roar escaping his lips. His hand passed through the jinn's form as if it were insubstantial. With a final, bone-chilling laugh, the jinn vanished, taking Sarah with it. Zara lay unconscious on the ground. Tremors racked Asher's body as he slumped against a bookshelf. Bitter regret tainted his mouth. He had condemned Sarah, an innocent soul, to eternal torment through his actions. Days turned into weeks, then months. The police investigation into Sarah's disappearance yielded nothing. Irina remained missing, presumed dead. Asher, a broken shell of a man, became a ghost haunting his own life. He saw Sarah everywhere, in the crowded streets, in the flickering reflections of shop windows. But it wasn't the kind of haunting that brought comfort. The nightmares started soon after. Vivid dreams where Sarah, her face contorted in terror, begged him for help. He'd wake up in a cold sweat, the sheets tangled around him, the oppressive feeling of being watched clinging to him like a shroud. One night, a blood-curdling scream ripped through his apartment. He scrambled out of bed, heart hammering against his ribs. The source of the scream led him to the living room. There, suspended in midair, was the horrifying silhouette of the jinn, Sarah's lifeless form dangling from its grasp. A cold fury replaced his terror. He lunged at the apparition, but once again, his hand passed through the smoky form. The jinn laughed, a sound that crawled under Asher's skin, and spoke in a voice that seemed to emanate from within his own skull. "You see, Asher," it rasped, "Allah will not answer your prayers. Your sins are too great. This torment will be your companion for the rest of your days, a constant reminder of your betrayal." The jinn vanished, taking Sarah's spectral form with it. Asher collapsed on the floor, his mind on the verge of shattering. He realized then, with a chilling certainty, that his punishment wouldn't end with nightmares. He was condemned to relive the horrors he had unleashed, forever haunted by Sarah's ghost and the malevolent entity he had brought into their world. Weeks later, Asher found himself strapped to a bed in a sterile white room. The events of the past months were dismissed as a psychotic breakdown. He received treatment, medications, but the jinn and Sarah's ghost remained. They followed him into the sterile confines of the mental hospital. Whispering had never stopped following him. No one believed him except Zara. Zara promised Asher that she would never leave him in this despair for his whole life, and decided to help him on her own. As in her bookstore, she closely examined the ripped page pulsed with a malevolent energy. "This," she rasped, her voice cracking, "is an invocation, a summoning ritual for a particularly vicious breed of jinn, a merid. They feed on negative emotions, twisting them into grotesque entities that torment their victims." Panic clawed at Asher's throat. The whispers, the shadows, Irina's vacant stare. It all became horrifyingly clear. He had unleashed a monster, and it had taken Irina. The exorcism ritual for a Marid was far more complex and dangerous than that for a regular jinn. It required not only holy water and sacred offerings, but also a blood sacrifice from someone pure of heart, untouched by darkness. In his corrupted world, who could possess such purity? Despair loomed, but a memory ignited Sarah. Her unwavering faith, her selfless act of offering her blood in the previous ritual. But it had failed, and now, nausea engulfed him. Had he condemned Sarah to eternal torment because of his own sins? The thought sent shivers down his spine. Fueled by desperate hope, Asher returned to Zara's bookstore. Once a comforting haven, now a tomb, shrouded in oppressive silence. Zara was nowhere to be found. A solitary raven feather lay on the counter, its black sheen dull and lifeless. Weeks were spent searching for Zara, for Sarah, for any glimmer of hope. He scoured occult forums, delved into the city's underbelly, but found nothing. All he had was the gnawing fear of facing the Marid alone. One night, as he lay in bed, consumed by despair, the shadows in his room twisted and writhed. A chilling voice echoed in his mind, a cacophony of whispers and screams. Then, a ghastly figure emerged from the darkness. It was Sarah, yet not the Sarah he knew. Her once gentle eyes glowed with an unholy red light, her skin a sickly gray, her smile a grotesque distortion. Inky black tendrils pulsated around her, a constant reminder of the Marid's grip on her soul. "You betrayed me, Asher," she rasped, her voice a haunting echo of her former self. "You condemned me to an eternity of agony, and now I shall return the favor." The torment began subtly, cold spots following him all day, brief glimpses of Sarah's spectral figure in his periphery, the incessant whispers driving him to madness. Seeking help from friends, his claims of demonic possession were met with pity and ridicule. Isolated and broken, Asher finally succumbed. His once vibrant spirit crumbled, replaced by a paranoid shell of a man. Ultimately, he was confined to a sterile asylum, the doctors attributing his hallucinations to severe psychosis. But the Marid had not forsaken him. The whispers persisted, echoing through the sterile asylum corridors, pushing fellow patients to the edge. Grotesque shadows danced unseen by all but Asher on the walls. The Marid thrived on his fear, growing stronger with each passing day. Even during his internment, the entity persisted. On the night of his anticipated recovery, chaos erupted in the room where his release was debated. Shadows transformed into monstrous shapes, the Marid reveling in the fear it imposed on the unsuspecting staff. Amidst the ensuing pandemonium, Asher fled, melting into the night, forever haunted by the monstrous force he had unleashed. His life evolved into a nomadic journey, a perpetual escape from the invisible tormentor. Cities blended together, faces merged into the crowd. Yet the whispers, shadows, and chilling touch of the Marid remained constant companions. Decades passed. Asher aged. His hair turned stark white, his face etched with the marks of a life consumed by dread. In a dim motel room, his body succumbed to a lonely demise, a man who had forfeited everything. Even in death, solace eluded him. At his sparsely attended funeral, as mourners gathered, a cold wind swept through the graveyard. The word intikam, appeared in bloody red on his headstone, a chilling final message from the married. After the final mourner departed, a solitary figure lingered by Asher's grave. Clad in black, she stood out against the fading light, holding an hourglass that cast an eerie glow on her face, accentuated by stark black lipstick. The air crackled with tension, sending shivers down your spine, followed by a whisper, faint like leaves rustling on dry pavement. Intikam, it murmured, the Urdu word for revenge lingering in the air. Anna, Asher's younger sister, stood frozen nearby, drawn by an inexplicable force towards the enigmatic figure. Curiosity stirred within her. Who was this woman, mourning at her brother's grave? With a deep breath, she gathered her courage and approached. "Excuse me," she started, her voice hesitant. "Were you a friend of Asher's?" The woman remained silent, her gaze fixed on the headstone. Unease tingled on Anna's skin as she continued, a nervous chuckle escaping her. "He was quite the college hero, you know? Won countless rugby matches in high school. All the girls adored him." Silence persisted. No response. Anna bit her lip, uncertain of her next move. The atmosphere weighed heavy with unspoken sentiments. Finally, she opted for a more direct approach. "Listen," she asserted, her voice firm. "I understand this is a trying time, but if you knew Asher, wouldn't you want to, well, reminisce about him? Share some memories?" The woman slowly turned her head, revealing a face etched with a sadness that mirrored your own. But there was something else in her eyes, a flicker of something dark and unreadable. As she opened her mouth to speak, a sudden gust of wind whipped through the cemetery, scattering fallen leaves and sending chills down your spine. The woman hesitated, then closed her mouth again. With a final, lingering look at the grave, she turned and walked away, her black figure disappearing into the gathering dusk. The hourglass, forgotten in her haste, lay abandoned on the ground. She picked it up, the cool glass sending a jolt through your hand. Sand swirled within, the tiny grains representing the relentless march of time. A single tear rolled down your cheek, landing on the cool surface with a soft plop. You didn't know who this woman was, or what her connection to Asher might be. But one thing was clear: the mystery surrounding her brother's death was far from over. As the lone figure in black melted into the dusk, Sana emerged from the shadows, her heart a lead weight in her chest. The air hung heavy with the fading scent of lilies and freshly turned earth. Each step towards Asher's grave felt like a betrayal, a further descent into the darkness she'd sworn to escape. Tears, hot and angry, blurred her vision as she reached the headstone. "Why?" she choked out, her voice raw with a grief that bordered on madness. "Why did you have to drag me into this mess? Asher, I just came here to study, to build a new life. You ruined everything." Her words echoed hollowly in the stillness of the cemetery, answered only by the mournful cry of a distant owl. But Sana didn't care. The carefully constructed facade of control crumbled. Tears streamed down her face, each one a silent accusation against the man who had awakened a darkness within her she never knew existed. With a tormented shriek, she lunged at the freshly turned earth. Clawing at the soft soil with a desperate fury, she ripped open the grave, her long nails tearing at the coarse fabric of reality. Beneath the pale moonlight, Asher's face, peaceful in death, was revealed. A guttural sob escaped her lips, a mixture of rage and a morbid curiosity. "Look at you," she spat, her voice thick with venom. "So peaceful while I'm left to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. Who will ever want me now, with this darkness clinging to me like a shroud?" She traced a bloody finger down his cheek, a grotesque caress. The image of her future, once filled with promise, now flickered with horrifying possibilities. How could she face her family, explain the dark magic that now tainted her soul? As the moon dipped behind a veil of clouds, plunging the cemetery into an inky darkness, a chilling calm settled over Sanaa. Her sobs subsided, replaced by a cold, steely glint in her eyes. "You took my future, Asher," she whispered, her voice barely a tremor in the stillness. "Now it's my turn to take yours. Not just your peace, but your legacy, your very memory. The world will know you not as a hero, but as a monster who destroyed the life of an innocent girl." The flickering fluorescent lights cast an eerie glow on the dusty classroom at Blackwood College. Professor Hemlock's booming voice echoed in my head. "Detention! All of you! 5 hours after closing. For your utter disregard for deadlines and basic responsibility. Fantastic. Just what I needed after a night of glitter, bass, and questionable dance moves at Tiffany's OnlyFans after-party." Tiffany, our friend and resident enigma, was raking in obscene amounts for, well, you get the picture. Tonight's detention included not only the usual suspects, me, Ashley, perpetually behind on sleep and deadlines, and my ever-patient boyfriend, Michael, along with Tiffany and her brooding model beau, Jason, but also the entire party crew. Professor Hemlock, bless his forgetful soul, hadn't shown up to release us at the appointed hour. Panic clawed at my throat. 5 hours in a supposedly haunted classroom with a group of sleep-deprived, sugared-up friends? Not ideal. The whispers about Blackwood's resident ghost, the proctor, a stern disciplinarian who roamed the halls after dark, sent shivers down my spine. These were just college myths, right? The initial fear subsided as the boys, ever the charmers, cracked jokes and wrestled over a dusty basketball. To distract ourselves, we unearthed a crumpled sheet of paper from a drawer, instructions for a seemingly harmless game called Triple Dog Dare. Each player would write down a dare, fold the paper, and pick one at random. The dares started lighthearted. Sing the school anthem backwards, make a prank call to the janitor. But as the night wore on, and the shadows stretched longer, the dares turned sinister. Knock 3 times on the window overlooking the cemetery. Tiffany's dare read, her voice barely a whisper. A cold dread washed over me. The cemetery, a place whispered to hold the restless spirit of the proctor. Michael, ever the skeptic, volunteered, his bravado masking a hint of unease. He walked towards the window, the silence in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. 3 hesitant raps echoed into the night. Then it began. A gust of icy wind slammed the window shut, extinguishing a nearby light bulb. A guttural moan resonated through the room, the source unseen. Panic seized us. We huddled together, the flickering emergency light casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The dares continued, each one escalating the terror. A blood-curdling scream pierced the silence as Jason dared to walk down the darkened hallway, stumbled back, his face pale. He wouldn't speak, his eyes wide with terror. The final dare lay on the table, untouched. It simply read, "Read the inscription on the proctor's tombstone." We were trapped, the game toying with our sanity and sense of security. As dawn approached, casting an eerie light through the dusty window, Michael, his voice trembling, announced, "There is no tombstone. There never was a proctor." A collective gasp escaped our lips. Then, a blood-stained handprint materialized on the pristine white paper holding the final dare. We were no longer playing a game. We were being hunted. The terror that unfolded that night transcended anything I could have ever imagined. The handprint was just the beginning. Strange noises echoed through the halls, unseen objects flew across the room, and an oppressive feeling of dread settled upon us. We barricaded ourselves in the classroom, using desks and chairs to create a flimsy barrier against the unseen entity. Hours bled into what felt like an eternity. Exhaustion gnawed at us, and fear became a constant companion. We rationed the leftover snacks from the party, the sugary treats a poor substitute for a real meal. Sleep was a distant dream, replaced by a constant vigilance against the unseen threat. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the grimy windows, a sense of relief washed over us. We were alive, but the ordeal had left its mark. Jason remained withdrawn, his eyes haunted by whatever he had witnessed in the darkened hallway. Tiffany, usually the life of the party, was pale and quiet, clutching a rosary someone had found in a dusty drawer. Professor Hemlock, flustered and apologetic, finally arrived to release us. We stumbled out of the classroom, blinking in the harsh morning light. The college, usually bustling with activity, seemed strangely silent. A sense of unease lingered, a feeling that something wasn't quite right. The news that spread through Blackwood like wildfire was both shocking and unsettling. The night watchman, a gruff old man named Mr. Higgins, was found dead in his office. His face contorted in a look of sheer terror, his body inexplicably cold and rigid. The police investigation yielded nothing, attributing his death to a heart attack. But we knew better. The following days were a blur of whispered rumors and nervous glances. We, the detention survivors, became an unwelcome curiosity. Professor Hemlock, usually a stern but fair man, seemed withdrawn, haunted by his own forgetfulness. The silence of Mr. Higgins' death hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the night's events. Determined to understand what happened, Michael and I decided to delve deeper. We spent hours scouring the college library, unearthing dusty tomes on Blackwood's history. Deep within a leather-bound book titled Chronicles of Blackwood, we stumbled upon a chilling account. The story spoke of a young schoolmaster named Thomas Proctor, notorious for his harsh disciplinary methods. In 1847, during a particularly brutal winter, a student named William Evans died from complications of pneumonia after being punished to stand outside in the freezing cold. The townsfolk, enraged by the boy's death, stormed the college, accusing Proctor of murder. The account became hazy at this point, the ink faded and cryptic. It mentioned a struggle, a fall from the bell tower, and an unholy pact made by Proctor in the throes of death. The final lines spoke of an entity bound to the college, a vengeful spirit forever seeking retribution for the student's life. Armed with this knowledge, we approached Jason and Tiffany. Jason, still shaken, recounted his experience in the hallway. He described a spectral figure, clad in a long black coat, its face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. The entity exuded an icy coldness that made his blood run cold. Tiffany, clutching the rosary even tighter, confessed to experiencing a suffocating pressure during the night, a feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. We were no longer alone. We were being targeted. Fear turned into a desperate need for action. We knew we needed to confront the proctor, to somehow appease it. But how? Back in the library, we stumbled upon another passage, this time detailing a ritual used by Native American tribes to appease restless spirits. It involved offerings, apologies, and a symbolic cleansing of the haunted area. We gathered what we could: flowers from the college garden, a bottle of holy water borrowed from a nervous janitor, and salt from the cafeteria kitchen. With trembling hands, we returned to the detention classroom on a moonless night. The air in the room felt thick with an oppressive silence. Following the instructions from the book, we placed the offerings on the desk, sprinkled salt around the room, and Michael, his voice shaky but firm, offered an apology for the past transgression. A cold gust of wind slammed the window shut, plunging the room into darkness. We huddled together, bracing ourselves for the worst. Then, a faint tapping sound echoed through the room, the source seemingly random. It started slow, then grew more rapid, until it was a relentless drumming that vibrated through our bones. The sound stopped as abruptly as it began. A heavy silence descended, broken only by our ragged breaths. We waited, hearts pounding against our ribs, until a faint light emanated from the corner of the room. It was a spectral figure, the same one Jason had described, its form shimmering and translucent. The figure glided towards the offerings, its touch sending shivers down our spines. It lingered for a moment, then turned and slowly faded away, leaving a trail of icy mist in its wake. The air grew lighter, the oppressive feeling lifted. A sense of peace, albeit an unsettling one, settled upon us. We didn't know if it was over or just a temporary reprieve, but we did know that we had faced our fear and possibly appeased the proctor. News of our late-night visit to the classroom spread. We became local legends, the ghost hunters of Blackwood. But the experience left its mark on all of us. Jason dropped out of college, haunted by what he had seen. Tiffany toned down her online persona, a newfound seriousness replacing her usual carefree attitude. Michael and I remained together, but the ordeal had cast a shadow on our relationship, constantly reminding us of the night we were trapped with a vengeful spirit. Blackwood College never regained its former carefree atmosphere. Professor Hemlock retired early, citing health reasons. Mr. Higgins' replacement was a more jovial fellow, but a sense of unease lingered in the halls. Years later, during our college reunion, we gathered at Blackwood. The campus looked weathered, the buildings bearing the scars of time. We stood outside the classroom where it all began, a mix of nostalgia and apprehension bubbling within us. Professor Hemlock, older but still recognizable, joined us. "I never forgot what happened that night," he confessed, his voice raspy. "I believe you faced something none of us could comprehend." We didn't need to explain everything to him. The weight of that night was a shared burden, a silent pact forged in terror. As we stood there, a young student approached, his eyes wide with curiosity. "Are you the ones they call the ghost hunters?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. We exchanged glances. We weren't heroes, not exactly. We were survivors, forever marked by the night we were trapped with a restless spirit. But maybe, just maybe, our story could serve as a warning. A reminder that some things are best left undisturbed. A sudden gust of wind swirled around us, carrying the scent of old paper and dust. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a shadowy figure flicker in the distance, a wide-brimmed hat obscuring its face. Then it was gone. Perhaps the proctor was appeased, or perhaps it was merely biding its time. The truth remained shrouded in the shadows of Blackwood College. But one thing was certain. The haunting wasn't quite over. It had become a part of the college's lore, a chilling footnote whispered by students in hushed tones. Years later, I received a call from Michael. He sounded frantic, his voice laced with a familiar terror. "Ashley," he stammered, "it's happening again. They found another student dead in his dorm room, just like Mr. Higgins, his face contorted in fear." My heart hammered against my ribs. The fear that had subsided for years resurfaced, sharp and fresh. "We have to go back, Michael," I said, my voice resolute. "We have to finish what we started." Blackwood College loomed before us, the familiar buildings casting long shadows under the pale moonlight. A nervous energy crackled in the air, a feeling like unseen eyes were watching us. We were older now, seasoned by life and the weight of the past. But the fear still lingered, a constant companion. This time, we weren't just facing the proctor. We were determined to uncover the truth behind its existence, the reason for its relentless anger. We delved deeper into Blackwood's history, scouring dusty archives and interviewing elderly townsfolk. Pattern emerged. Every few decades, a student or faculty member would die under mysterious circumstances, their faces contorted in a look of sheer terror. The deaths coincided with the anniversary of William Evans' passing. The puzzle pieces began to click. William Evans wasn't just a victim. He was the key. We needed to find his grave, to understand the connection between his death and the proctor's rage. The cemetery, shrouded in mist, held a chilling air. William Evans' grave was unmarked, lost to the passage of time. But with the help of an old sexton's map, we managed to locate it. As we brushed away the dirt and leaves, a chilling inscription emerged on the weathered stone. "Unjustly taken, forever seeking solace." A wave of despair washed over me. William Evans wasn't just seeking revenge. He was trapped, bound to the college by his wrongful demise. The entity we called the proctor wasn't a vengeful spirit, but a manifestation of William's pain, a spectral embodiment of his final, desperate plea for justice. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. A spectral figure materialized from the grave, its form a twisted reflection of the young William Evans. It was filled with an otherworldly rage, a torrent of emotions that had festered for over a century. We couldn't fight this entity. We needed to reason with it to acknowledge the injustice done. Michael stepped forward, his voice firm yet filled with empathy. "William," he said, "we know what happened to you. Your death was a tragedy, an act of cruelty that cries out for justice." The spectral figure wavered, the rage flickering in its eyes. Tears, shimmering like moonlight, rolled down its transparent cheeks. "Justice," it rasped, the voice a chilling echo. We knelt before the grave, vowing to bring William's story to light. We promised to ensure his memory was honored, to work towards preventing such a tragedy from ever happening again. Slowly, the spectral figure began to fade, the rage replaced by a flicker of hope. As dawn painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, A sense of peace settled over the cemetery. The air felt lighter, the oppressive aura lifted. We didn't know if William Evans had truly found solace, but we had done what we could. The news of William Evans' story spread through Blackwood College like wildfire. A memorial service was held, a scholarship fund established in his name. The college underwent a review of its disciplinary practices, ensuring such an abuse of power wouldn't happen again. But the haunting wasn't quite over. There was one loose thread dangling, a chilling discovery we made while researching William Evans. In the dusty archives, we stumbled upon a faded newspaper clipping detailing a fire that ravaged the college dormitories in 1847, the same year Evans died. The fire, it stated, was started by a disgruntled student seeking revenge for a harsh punishment. The implication was chilling. William Evans wasn't the only soul trapped within Blackwood's walls. The vengeful spirit we encountered might have been a manifestation of his pain, but somewhere, lurking in the shadows, perhaps bound to the site of the fire, resided the true entity fueled by rage, the spirit of the student who started the blaze. This revelation sent shivers down our spines. We had appeased one spirit, but the true threat, the one fueled by a more primal desire for revenge, remained. We knew then that our story wasn't over. Years passed. We moved on with our lives, haunted by the memories of Blackwood, yet resolute in our promise to William Evans. We built careers, started families. Yet the chilling events of that night remained a constant undercurrent. Then, one day, I received a call from Michael, his voice laced with urgency. "Ashley," he said, his voice trembling, "they're building a new dormitory wing, on the exact site of the 1847 fire." My heart sank. We had warned the college administration, pleaded with them to consider relocating the construction, but greed had won over reason. Now, they were unwittingly awakening a slumbering evil. We rushed back to Blackwood, the familiar dread rising within us. Construction was already underway, the skeleton of the new wing rising from the ground. We knew we had to act fast. This time, we weren't alone. We reached out to local historians, paranormal investigators, anyone who might possess knowledge of appeasing vengeful spirits. We scoured ancient texts and consulted with spiritual advisors, piecing together a ritual of exorcism, a desperate attempt to banish the entity before it could wreak havoc. The night of the ritual arrived, a night thick with tension and foreboding. We gathered at the construction site, armed with symbols of purification and ancient chants. As we began the ritual, a cold wind swept through the area, extinguishing nearby lights and sending shivers down our spines. The ground trembled, and a guttural roar echoed through the night. A spectral figure materialized from the ground, its form cloaked in flames, its eyes burning with rage. It lashed out, a vortex of dark energy threatening to engulf us. But we persevered, channeling our combined will into the ritual. The chants grew louder, the symbols pulsed with an ethereal light, pushing back against the entity's fury. The battle raged throughout the night. Doubt gnawed at us, but we held on, fueled by a desperate hope to prevent another tragedy. Finally, with a deafening scream that tore through the night, the entity began to fade. The spectral flames flickered and died, leaving behind an unsettling silence. Dawn broke, casting a pale light on the exhausted figures gathered at the construction site. We had won, but at a cost. The experience had taken its toll, leaving us emotionally and physically drained. Yet, a sense of relief washed over us. The construction of the new wing was halted, the site deemed unfit for habitation. A memorial plaque was erected in memory of those lost in the 1847 fire, a somber reminder of the past. Blackwood College never fully recovered from the events. The whispers of the hauntings lingered, a chilling reminder of the night the students and a restless spirit collided. We, the survivors, became a living legend, forever bound by the shared experience. But the story wasn't truly over. Years later, a documentary filmmaker contacted me, expressing interest in making a film about the Blackwood haunting. As I recounted the events, a chilling detail resurfaced, a detail I had somehow overlooked all these years. The newspaper clipping detailing the 1847 fire mentioned the student who started the blaze. His name was Thomas Proctor. The blood drained from my face. Thomas Proctor. The name echoed in my mind, a sickening realization dawning. The vengeful spirit we initially encountered, the one William Evans Payne manifested as, wasn't the true threat. It was a shield, a deflection. The true Thomas Proctor, the one consumed by rage after the fire, remained trapped, his spirit bound to the very ground where his act of destruction had taken place. The ritual we performed might have banished the entity fueled by William Evans' suffering, but it wouldn't have affected Thomas Proctor. Panic clawed at my throat. I relayed this chilling realization to Michael, the weight of the truth heavy on our shoulders. We had achieved a temporary victory, but the true threat remained, festering beneath the surface. The documentary filmmaker, sensing our urgency, offered to help. We contacted the college administration, presenting them with the newly discovered information and the potential danger it posed. Initially, the college leadership scoffed at the idea. However, with the filmmaker's backing and the weight of the past hauntings, they reluctantly agreed to a full-fledged archaeological excavation of the construction site. The excavation unearthed a horrifying truth. Beneath the rubble, they found the charred remains of a young man, identifiable through a locket containing a faded portrait, a portrait that bore an uncanny resemblance to the spectral figure we had encountered in the cemetery. The news sent shockwaves through the academic community. The college, facing mounting pressure, was forced to concede. They decided to relocate the construction site and dedicate the unearthed area as a permanent memorial to all those who had lost their lives in the tragedies that plagued Blackwood College. The documentary, titled The Haunting of Blackwood, Echoes of the Past, became a sensation. It explored the historical context of the tragedies, the impact on the students, and our role in the events. It served as a chilling reminder of the power of unresolved anger and the importance of acknowledging the past. For Michael and me, the experience had come full circle. We had finally laid the ghosts of Blackwood to rest, not with holy water and chants, but with truth and a commitment to ensuring the past wasn't buried and forgotten. Years later, on a crisp autumn day, I stood before the memorial at Blackwood College. The names of William Evans and Thomas Proctor were etched side by side, a testament to the interconnected tragedy. It wasn't a place of sorrow, but a reminder of the lessons learned. A young student approached, his eyes wide with curiosity. "Are you the ones they call the ghost hunters?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. I smiled sadly. "We were," I replied, "but sometimes the real ghosts aren't the ones that go bump in the night. They're the ones we carry within ourselves." The student nodded thoughtfully, his gaze lingering on the inscription. As he turned to leave, a lone leaf swirled through the air, landing at my feet. It was a maple leaf, a vibrant red against the gray stone. A small, almost imperceptible flicker of movement caught my eye. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a spectral figure standing near the trees, its form shrouded in a soft, golden light. It wasn't menacing, but rather hopeful, as if finally at peace. Then it was gone. Perhaps it was William Evans, finally freed from his earthly tether. Or maybe, just maybe, it was Thomas Proctor, his rage subsided, his spirit finally able to move on. The haunting of Blackwood College was over. But the memories, the lessons, and the lingering questions would forever echo within its walls. A reminder that the past, once acknowledged and understood, can finally rest. The documentary's success, however, brought unwanted attention. Fringe groups, drawn to the aura of the supernatural, began flocking to Blackwood. Amateur ghost hunters with EMF readers and Ouija boards trespassed on the memorial grounds, their disrespect a festering wound on the college's newfound peace. One blustery night, Michael called me, his voice laced with urgency. There were reports of vandalism at the memorial, he said. They say someone tried to tamper with Proctor's remains. A cold dread seeped into my bones. We rushed back to Blackwood, the familiar fear gripping us. The memorial was cordoned off, police officers guarding the scene. A sense of violation hung heavy in the air. The officer in charge, a young woman named Detective Ramirez, explained the situation. They found a strange symbol carved into the stone around Proctor's remains, she said, showing us a photograph. The symbol resembled a distorted pentagram, pulsing with an unsettling energy. A shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't a random act of vandalism. This was deliberate, a calculated attempt to stir something up. Fear morphed into a steely resolve. We wouldn't let the ghosts of Blackwood be resurrected. We contacted the local university's history department, specifically a professor specializing in occult studies, Dr. Evelyn Thorne. A woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, she confirmed our worst fears. The symbol, she explained, tracing it with a finger, is a sigil, a gateway to channel negative energy. Someone is trying to manipulate residual emotions, to amplify the rage that still lingers. Michael and I exchanged worried glances. The firestorm of emotions unleashed during the 1847 fire, William Evans' despair, and Thomas Proctor's fury. If these were manipulated, the consequences could be devastating. Dr. Thorne outlined a plan. We needed to cleanse the memorial, to weaken the sigil's power. Using herbs, chants, and symbols gleaned from ancient texts, we held a ceremony under the watchful gaze of the moon. The air crackled with a strange energy as we performed the ritual, feeling the pushback of a malevolent force. Just as we finished, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall and imposing, clad in dark clothing, he held a book radiating a dark aura. It was the leader of one of the fringe groups, a man who called himself Harbinger. "You fools," he snarled. "You don't understand the power you're meddling with. The past fuels the future, and anger gives birth to strength." Before we could react, he chanted words from his book. The sigil on the memorial pulsed with renewed energy, and a dark mist began to coalesce above it. A spectral form, twisted and malevolent, started to take shape, a grotesque amalgamation of William Evans' sorrow and Thomas Proctor's rage. Dr. Thorne stepped forward, her voice ringing with authority. "This isn't about power," she declared. "It's about understanding the past and learning from its mistakes. Let them rest in peace." We joined forces, channeling positive energy, memories of the peace we helped achieve, and the promise of a better future. The dark mist recoiled, the spectral form flickering. With a final, deafening roar, the entity dissipated. Harbinger, his attempt thwarted, fled into the night. We watched him go, a mixture of relief and exhaustion washing over us. The news of the latest incident spread like wildfire. Public outcry against the fringe groups led to stricter regulations, putting a stop to their disrespectful trespassings. The college administration, shaken by the event, vowed to improve security around the memorial. Life for us went on. We married, had children, and built our own lives. But Blackwood College and its haunting remained a part of us. A story we shared at hushed gatherings. A reminder of the night we faced the ghosts of the past and the future. Years later, a research paper landed in my mailbox. It was from Dr. Thorne, titled The Blackwood Enigma, Uncovering the Lingering Psyche. Her research detailed the psychological impact of historical events, arguing that unresolved emotions could leave a psychic imprint on a location. In a concluding note, she wrote, "While the active hauntings at Blackwood seem to have ceased, the residual energy remains. The key to truly laying the ghosts to rest lies in acknowledging the past, not just the tragedies, but the acts of courage and compassion that emerged from them." Dr. Thorne's words resonated deeply. Perhaps the real haunting of Blackwood wasn't the vengeful spirits, but the collective unconscious, the echo of unresolved emotions. Blackwood College could never fully escape its past, but by acknowledging it, by learning from its mistakes. My name is Chuck, and I graduated from the University of New York in 2018. My college experience was perfect. I was part of a fraternity, managed my studies well, and spent the right amount of time chasing girls. I'm still friends with my old college mates, and I recently got married to one of my girlfriends, Sarah, from university. But if you had asked me about my opinion on my university when I was a freshman, it would have been very, very different. What I'm about to tell you was one of the main reasons why I was overly ambitious in high school. The University of New York atmosphere was extremely foreign to me. It was weird being surrounded by so many self-proclaimed high achievers. But what happened during my freshman year changed everything. It was a crisp autumn evening when my friends and I decided to explore the old university library. The building loomed ominously, its Gothic architecture casting long shadows across the campus. Despite its intimidating facade, we were eager to uncover its secrets. As we stepped into the dimly lit library, a chill ran down my spine. The air was heavy with the scent of old books and decay, and a sense of foreboding settled over us like a shroud. But we pressed on, fueled by curiosity and youthful bravado. We wandered through the aisles, running our fingers over the spines of ancient tomes and tracing the faded letters of forgotten manuscripts. But as we delved deeper into the labyrinthine corridors, we stumbled upon a section of the library that seemed untouched by time. The books here were different, older, darker, bound in leather that felt cold to the touch. And as we perused their pages, we realized with growing horror that they contained forbidden knowledge, arcane rituals, and blasphemous incantations. But it was too late to turn back. We had awakened something ancient and malevolent, something that should have remained buried in the depths of history. As we performed a reckless ritual, our laughter turned to screams, and the shadows that lurked in the corners of the library came to life. I can still hear the whispers that echoed through the halls, the chilling laughter that reverberated in the darkness. And though we managed to escape with our lives, we were forever changed by what we had witnessed. The university that once seemed so perfect was now tainted by darkness, haunted by the specters of our past. And as I look back on my college years, I can't help but wonder what other secrets lie hidden within its walls, waiting to be uncovered by those foolish enough to seek them out. The days that followed our encounter in the library were fraught with uncertainty. We tried to go about our lives as usual, but the memory of that fateful night lingered in the back of our minds, casting a shadow over our every move. Mia, always the skeptic, tried to rationalize what had happened, dismissing it as a mere trick of the mind brought on by stress and exhaustion. But even she couldn't deny the unease that settled over us like a thick fog, clinging to our every thought and action. Liam, ever the voice of reason, urged caution, warning us not to delve too deeply into matters best left untouched. But his words fell on deaf ears as we became consumed by our obsession with uncovering the truth behind the library's dark secrets. We spent countless hours poring over ancient texts and deciphering cryptic manuscripts, our determination unyielding in the face of mounting danger. But the deeper we delved, the more apparent it became that some mysteries were never meant to be solved. As the weeks turned into months, tensions ran high among us, fueled by fear and paranoia. Every shadow seemed to conceal a lurking threat, every whisper a harbinger of doom. And though we tried to reassure ourselves that it was all just our imagination running wild, deep down, we knew that something sinister lurked in the shadows, waiting to claim us as its own. It wasn't long before strange things began to happen on campus. Students reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the darkness. Whispers echoed through the halls, and eerie symbols appeared overnight, etched into the walls with an otherworldly precision. Despite our best efforts to ignore the signs, it soon became clear that we were not alone in our plight. Others had encountered the same malevolent force that had plagued us, their stories mirroring our own in chilling detail. As the semester drew to a close, tensions reached a boiling point, and it became clear that we could no longer ignore the truth staring us in the face. We had unleashed something ancient and malevolent upon the world, and now it was up to us to set things right before it was too late. With heavy hearts and trembling hands, we returned to the library one final time, determined to put an end to the nightmare that had plagued us for so long. Armed with knowledge gleaned from our relentless research, we performed a daring ritual, risking everything in a desperate bid to banish the darkness once and for all. But as the final incantation echoed through the chamber, a sense of dread washed over us, and we knew that our journey was far from over. For in our quest for answers, we had only scratched the surface of the true horrors that lurked within the shadows. As we emerged from the library, battered and bruised but alive, I couldn't help but feel a sense of profound loss. The university that had once been my home was now little more than a shell of its former self, its once vibrant halls now tainted by the darkness that lurked within. But as I looked around at my friends, their faces drawn and weary but determined, I knew that our journey was far from over. For though the road ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, we would face it together, united in our quest to rid the world of the darkness that threatened to consume us all. And as we walked away from the university, our footsteps echoing in the silence of the night, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope stirring within me. For though the darkness may have won this battle, I knew that the light would always prevail in the end. And as long as we stood together, nothing could ever truly defeat us. So as I look back on my college years, I do so with a sense of pride and gratitude for the friends who stood by my side through it all. And though our journey may have been fraught with danger and uncertainty, I wouldn't have had it any other way. For it was in those darkest of moments that we truly discovered who we were and what we were capable of, and for that, I will be forever grateful. Join us, brave souls, as we unlock the gates to a world of horror unlike any other. From ancient curses to modern-day monsters, Phantom Flicker delivers spine-tingling stories that will haunt your dreams and awaken your deepest fears. Subscribe now to Phantom Flicker and become part of our ever-growing legion of horror enthusiasts. Dive headfirst into a whirlwind of suspense, mystery, and unrelenting terror. But beware, once you've subscribed, there's no turning back from the abyss.